There are two main reasons why millions of kids dream of becoming footballers: winning trophies and earning big money. Even though history knows some examples when players remain loyal to one club, that's something we don't often see nowadays. There are players who decided to leave their clubs, not the small clubs we must admit, and later regretted that. This video is about 10 footballers who left their teams right before those teams won major trophies. Before we start, here's our question for you. Which of these footballers is a Premier League winner? Simone Mignolet, Fernando Torres, Radamel Falcao, Martin Demichelis. Leave your answer in the comments, and now we begin. Mauro Icardi. Inter won the Scudetto for the first time since 2010. The Argentine joined Nerazzurri in 2013 to become the best Serie A goalscorer twice with 124 goals in 6 years and the team leader for Inter. But that Inter didn't really compete for trophies and was more like a mid-table team. And that was Van der Nara's main point. Icardi's agent and wife pretty much said the terms on the matter of Mauro's contract. However, in 2019, Antonio Conte became the Inter coach and put an end to that. He made himself clear that he wouldn't tolerate the couple being that full of themselves. Icardi was transfer listed, and the replacement was brought to the club, Romelu Lukaku. At the end of the transfer window, PSG signed Icardi on loan and then a year later on a permanent basis for 50 million euros. He didn't really show anything special while at Paris and was no more than a rotational player. And even though PSG won some trophies in France, they are no match for the long-awaited Scudetto Inter won after 11 years, as the Nerazzurri put an end to Juve's Serie A dominance. Last summer, another Argentine was signed by PSG, Lionel Messi, and this means even less playing time for Icardi. What is more, he's about to get a divorce with Van der Nara, who's now entitled to all of his income up until 2015. Not exactly the life you dream of, is it? Arturo Vidal. Bayern won the Champions League for the first time since 2013. In 2015, Arturo lost the Champions League final to Barcelona and in summer left Juventus for Bayern. And his spell at Bayern was quite an ambiguous one. He played 124 games in 3 seasons, scored 22 goals and made 17 assists, but despite his decent stats, you could never call him one of the team leaders. So in 2018, it became clear that Vidal would leave the club sooner than later. He was 30 years old and Bayern gladly accepted Barcelona's offer for the Chilean. At Barca, Arturo wasn't always starting, though he scored 11 goals and made 11 assists in 2 seasons. He won La Liga and the Spanish Super Cup, but the European football turned out to be a disaster for the Blaugrana. First, they got relegated in the semi-final in 2019 as they lost to Liverpool after winning the first leg 3-0. And then a year later, Barca got demolished by Bayern in the quarter-final. 8-2 was the score. Bayern won that Champions League for the first time since 2013, while Vidal left for Inter to win the Serie A title. Ruud van Nistelrooy. Manchester United won the Champions League after 9 years. The Dutchman was one of the best strikers of the early 2000s. In 2001, Ruud joined Man United and scored 150 goals in 219 matches during his 5 years at the club. He managed to win all the domestic trophies in England, but not the Champions League, as the semi-final was the best result for the Red Devils. And that is why he left Sir Alex Ferguson's team to join Real Madrid in 2006. However, there's another version. As rumors said, Van Nistelrooy had a conflict with Ronaldo, who lost his father in 2006. It is said that Ruud called Carlos Queiroz, the assistant manager, Cristiano's new dad, and once Ferguson got to know about that, he transfer listed the Dutchman immediately. Anyway, Ruud van Nistelrooy left United for Real Madrid, where he kept scoring and won 2 La Liga titles. But it got even worse in the Champions League, as Real Madrid got relegated in the round of 16 4 times in a row, while it took United 2 years to win the biggest European trophy in the Moscow final against Chelsea. So the Champions League Cup remained just a dream for Van Nistelrooy. Soon he left Real Madrid and later played for such teams as Hamburg and Malaga. Roberto Baggio. Juventus won the Champions League after 11 years. Roberto Baggio played for a number of clubs in Italy, but we may say that he was at his best while playing for Juventus. In 1993, he won a Ballon d'Or as a Juve player. In 5 years, he scored 115 goals in 200 matches and won the Serie A, the UEFA Cup, and Coppa d'Italia. But then, in 1995, Roberto fell out with the coach, Marcello Lippi. The club sided with the coach and Baggio was sold to Milan for 9.3 million euros. At Milan, he wasn't as prolific as before, only 12 Serie A goals in 2 seasons at San Siro. However, it was enough to win the Scudetto, so Roberto Baggio became the first ever footballer to win Serie A 2 times in a row with 2 different clubs. At first, it seemed like a total triumph. But then Juventus, his old club, won the Champions League for the first time in 11 years as they won the penalty shootout against Ajax in the final. As for Baggio, the Champions League left unconquered, and the quarter-final as an Inter player in the 98-99 season was the best result for him. Michael Owen. Liverpool won the Champions League after 21 years. After Michael Owen's early debut at the age of 17, his career was on the rise. Soon he became the key player both for Liverpool and for England. By the age of 25, Owen scored 158 goals. That is the 8th best result in the club's history. Throughout his Liverpool career, Michael won 6 trophies: the UEFA Cup and the Super Cup, the FA Cup and the Community Shield, and 2 League Cups as well. He also won the most prestigious individual award, the Ballon d'Or, at the age of 22, which made him the second youngest winner behind Ronaldo, the Brazilian. After the 2003-2004 season, Rafa Benitez took over, while Owen had 1 year left on his contract. Eventually, the new coach failed to persuade Michael to stay, so the striker moved to Real Madrid for 12 million euros. And the time at Santiago Bernabeu wasn't really what he hoped for. He failed to make it into the first 11 due to the competition with Raúl and Ronaldo, but still scored 13 goals, which made him the player with the best minutes per goal ratio in La Liga. At that time, Owen realized that leaving Liverpool was a mistake. While Real was left with no trophies, Liverpool won that very Istanbul final in 2005. Once the 2004-05 season was over, Owen tried to get back to Anfield, but the clubs failed to agree on the transfer fee, so Owen ended up at Newcastle instead. Gaisca Mendieta. Valencia won La Liga after 30 years. Meet Gaisca Mendieta, the captain and the symbol of Valencia in the early 2000s. 296 games, 56 goals, Copa del Rey won, and 2 Champions League finals in 2000 and 2001. Unfortunately, Valencia lost them both, first to Real Madrid 3-0 and then to Bayern on penalties. The second Champions League final loss in a row wasn't the last of Valencia's disappointments. Some days later, Gaisca Mendieta decided to leave the club and join Lazio for an impressive sum of 48 million. Winning trophies was his biggest motivation, as Lazio was a very strong side at that time, the Serie A winner in 2000. And that move was surely the worst in Mendieta's career. The only thing that the second most expensive player in Lazio's history made is 1 assist in 31 matches. And what is more, while Mendieta struggled with his adaptation, his former club won La Liga twice, for the first time in 30 years. After a terrible season in Italy, Mendieta was back to Spain as he was loaned out to Barcelona. But nothing good came out of that, and in the end he was sold to Middlesbrough to play in England until he hung up his boots. Dennis Bergkamp. Ajax won the Champions League after 22 years. The Dutchman is one of the main symbols of Arsenal and the Premier League in general. However, his path to becoming a Premier League legend wasn't that easy. It all started at Ajax with 121 goals in 237 games. Bergkamp was one of the team and Eredivisie biggest stars, 2 times the best Eredivisie player and 3 times the best goalscorer. In 1993, he made a decision to leave for a bigger club, and among all the options, he chose Inter that paid Ajax a decent sum as for 1993 of €9,770,000. But scoring in Italy appeared to be not as easy as it was in the Netherlands. In 2 seasons, Bergkamp scored 22 goals in 72 games. 2 months before he left the club in 1995, his former club Ajax, with Louis van Gaal in charge, unexpectedly won the Champions League for the first time in 22 years. They beat Milan 1-0. Bergkamp, in his turn, joined Arsenal and later won 3 Premier League titles. Now he's among the Gunners' legends on merit. Ironically, Dennis Bergkamp's last game ever was the Champions League final in 2006 against Barcelona, which he had to watch from the bench. It's a pity that the Gunners failed to win that one. What a testimonial that could have been. Eden Hazard. Chelsea won the Champions League and the UEFA Super Cup for the first time since 2012, and also the Club World Championship for the first time in the club's history. The Belgian joined Chelsea in 2012, and it didn't take him much time to become a fan favorite. Eden Hazard spent 7 years at Stamford Bridge, scored 110 goals, made 92 assists, won 2 Premier League titles, the FA Cup and the League Cup, and also the Europa League twice. There was only one lacking: the Champions League. In 2019, Hazard's childhood dream came true as he moved to Real Madrid, the club that had won 4 Champions League titles in 6 years, and that move made him the most expensive signing for Los Blancos. At the time Hazard left Chelsea, the club was under a transfer ban, while Real Madrid had spent over €350 million. But in the end, a seemingly perfect decision turned out to be a terrible one. This season is Hazard's 3rd one at Real Madrid, and so far he's only scored 6 goals, mostly because of injuries that made him miss as many as 68 matches. His recent ankle injury has left him out for the rest of the season. And while Eden is feeling lost in Madrid, Chelsea made the right signings, appointed the right coach and got the result: the Champions League trophy for the first time since 2012. In the semi-final, Real Madrid was beaten, but Hazard didn't show a sign of disappointment. He actually had a laugh with his former teammate Kurt Zouma, and later had to apologize for that. Now, a year after, we can say that Hazard's time in Madrid is nearly over, as the club would love to get rid of the Belgian who makes no real impact, but earns €23.5 million per year. Philippe Coutinho. Liverpool won the Champions League after 14 years and the Premier League after 30 years. The Brazilian owes Liverpool, as he pretty much made his name while playing at Anfield. Few would have thought back in 2013, when he joined the club, that he would become a Premier League leading player. After Luis Suarez left for Barcelona, it was Philippe Coutinho to lead Liverpool's attacks almost single-handedly. He was doing his best, though it wasn't enough to bring trophies to Anfield. In winter 2018, however, when Jurgen Klopp wasn't far from forging a top team, Coutinho had no faith in the club's ambitions and decided to make a move to Barcelona to win silverware. He was so eager to join Barca that didn't want to wait and left Liverpool in winter. Later that season, the Scousers reached the Champions League final. Once he put on a Barca shirt, we must say he put on a very decent performance: 8 goals and 5 assists. But that spell was brief. Soon the Brazilian was nowhere to be found. Whenever Coutinho played, he was pretty much useless. That was a tough time for the club too, as despite their domestic victories, they were beaten in the Champions League time and time again. In 2019, Coutinho faced his old club. Barca won 3-0 in the first leg, while Coutinho assisted Luis Suarez, another ex-Liverpool player. But in the second leg, Liverpool made an incredible comeback: 4-0. They went through and won the final against Tottenham for the first time since 2005. Next season, Coutinho was loaned out to Bayern and won the Champions League, though he didn't really play a lot. But that very season brought the long-awaited Premier League title to his former team. Liverpool had to wait for that for 30 years. Now Liverpool is striving for another Premier League title, while Coutinho is playing on loan for Aston Villa, the mid-table team. Who knows how many trophies he could have won by now with Liverpool, but what's done is done. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Inter won the Champions League after 45 years. Barcelona won the Champions League. The Swedish legend is used to changing clubs, as he is used to seeing his old clubs winning the Champions League. In 2009, Ibra was the leading player for Inter, which had won 3 Serie A titles in a row. But once Zlatan moved to Barca in exchange for Samuel Eto'o, his old club won the Champions League for the first time since 1965 and beat Barcelona on the way to the trophy. The teams also played in the group stage, but in 4 matches against his old club, Zlatan didn't score once. So while Zlatan was most likely very upset, Samuel Eto'o must have been very happy to be an Inter player, as he became the first ever player to have won 2 Champions Leagues in a row, playing for 2 different clubs. All in all, that wasn't the best of seasons for Ibrahimovic. He scored 22 goals in all competitions, but fell out with Guardiola and had to leave for Milan, Inter's fierce rivals. It got way better once Zlatan got back to Serie A. The Milan fans loved him, while Ibra became the biggest star at his new club. But the irony, once again his old club won the Champions League right after he left, while Milan stumbled upon not that strong Tottenham in the round of 16. As you can see, it's not always that easy for a footballer to make a right move, as an obvious decision is not always the best one when the career is at stake. Dear friends, which of these stories impressed you the most? Please let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you soon.